And he probably would have agreed with me. It'd be let me set up the, if you want to share your face, I'm setting it up right now. We got to get him on camera. All right, you're good to go. The stream can see you now. But yeah, chat. I'm gonna give him a minute. He's not talking. Just let me know when you're here. But I'm gonna keep going. But these fucking like seeing these Europeans, like these like foreign whites, and then these like Arabs, these Asians, these like just everyone that isn't from America, honestly. And then the ones that live here, frankly, too. I just like makes me want to be Team Jew. Like it dead ass does. Like I like have this like not hatred of my own, but it's like everything we're fighting for, and then it's like the guy who's like the guy we end up red pilling is a 45-year-old half Indian, half white son of immigrants in America, and it's like, was it worth it, dude? It's like, fuck. Yeah, we're debating transgender issues. Don't worry about it, champ. Hey, are you having trouble with your camera or your mic?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, so I was trying to set it up on my phone, but even on that, it's not working. So I
Oh,
guess
was
unfortunately
it?
tonight,
It might
no
be because
camera.
we're in a private call. We can switch you over to a regular one. See if that
Okay,
works.
let's try that.
I'll just
Yeah,
go to a.
it's
I'll
because
just
I have
join
this.
there.
All right.
That's funny. Let me see if the crop. Hold on. Let me. Fuck chat. Let's do this. Hold on. Oh, that's not how I wanted to show both of us at the same time. How do I do that? Um. No, no, no. I can't hear you, dog. No audio. Yeah, I think it's just one or the other for you, I guess, huh? All right. Now let's go back to my Discord because at least I could hear you in there. Now I can't hear you. All right. Okay, I'll see you in there. Dude, this sucks, bro. Well, are you there?
Yeah, so that's on my phone, and I guess the audio is not working on my phone for whatever reason. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so it's because I have this new. It's like a Linux phone. I'm into
Are you telling me to
privacy
dox
technology,
myself,
and
Chad?
my phone runs off of EOS, and because of that, it has a lot of issues with
You're Jewish,
third-party
right,
apps
Jack?
like Discord.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
unfortunately, I'm gonna we'll do a second debate, and once we do that, I'll have everything squared away. I'll be able to actually stream the debate to my Twitter and my Rumble, and have everything running properly.
Sounds good.
So, but yeah, how's your day going?
I'm good. Hold on. Okay, Chad, go tell everyone I'm actually live, dude. I've been bullshitting for 90 minutes, bro. You know how
Oh
hard it
yeah,
is
what
to
you been?
entertain these fucking goys, dude? It's fucking
Yeah, there's a lot of.
non-whites. These goipers.
What'd you do? Play video games or something?
Yeah, and then, complained about my life. They really get into me
Complain
complaining
about
about my life. I
life.
think I should just do that more than politics
Yeah.
at this
What'd
point.
you complain about?
I don't know. I don't even remember. Most of it's fucking just feelings.
Just mostly ranting.
Yeah, just it makes no sense. It's incoherent. I
Yeah.
played Bed Wars
Yeah. Well, very cool. Oh, Bed Wars, nice,
for like
bro.
30 seconds. But
Yeah, Bed Wars
yeah.
is pretty fun.
But let me so me I already kind of gave you guys the breakdown earlier, but basically there was this freak who was DMing both of us and then trying to get us to beef, and then we never beefed, and then we DM'd, and we were like passive aggressively DMing each other things,
Yep.
because obviously we disagree on everything. And then we called to set this up, and now we're here. He's on the show. I think you're not streaming this time, but you will be next time over on his Rumble.
Yeah. When we do the second debate, I'll
Yeah.
make sure that I'm streaming, and I'm gonna start streaming on Twitter as well because it seems like I'm. I mean, that's where I have the most followers, so I probably get the most viewership on there as well.
Yeah.
So YouTube, unfortunately, I was not able to take off on,
No,
but I
no.
was recommended to, expand my platforms. Get out of the Twitter and Rumble space. And unfortunately, I've not been able to
So
break out of that.
Reinhardt.
I've been stuck on Rumble,
Dude,
stuck on Twitter.
there's no Wignats on
TikTok
YouTube,
banned
dog.
me.
That's why.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. I'm
Yeah.
just a little too racist. I might drop an M bomb here and there, and then I'm nuked.
Yeah.
So
I get that.
yeah, that's just how it works.
But if you want to break down, I guess, your whole, you know, where you
My
are,
political beliefs, where my
shortly,
standings are. So
and then we can get
yeah,
into the
I'll
argument,
get
I
into
guess.
that. I'll give the chat a basic breakdown of where I'm at. So I used to, well, I guess I've been on a journey since I
There we
was
go.
14
Hold on,
years
I'm trying to
old.
balance the audio.
When I was 14, I became a Trump supporter.
There we
I
go.
was on the MAGA train, but I mostly took the boomer position
Yes, Lionheart.
for
Love you, buddy.
Republican politics, and honestly taking positions that now I see as very gay, very stupid in a lot of ways because of their
Oh
pro-Jewish,
shit.
pro-Israel positions,
Uh-huh.
well, inherently. And then around 2021, I was on Odyssey. Many of you probably know that platform as that was one of the first alt tech the platforms that went viral on
No,
the
we're
internet.
back.
And I was on there, and then I saw this comment from some like guy that I thought was an idiot Nazi. He couldn't even type, and he was saying that Ben Shapiro is a little rat and he's a piece of shit and that nobody can trust him. And I was still, I was still on the Republican boomer political spectrum. And so I defended his point, and then he explained to me that I was just a faggot race traitor. And then that one comment on Odyssey set me on a journey that led me to becoming a Groiper and a Nick Fuentes fan, which I was for about 3 years. Until about the beginning of this year, around the time when I stopped doing my talk show, I then began, and it kind of seems like it's just the rabbit hole continues. And Nick Fuentes and the Groiperism was just a stop in my journey. And now I'm a full blown Nazi now. I have a swastika shirt. I watch Handsome Truth all the time. I think he's doing great content. Gypsy Crusader, not as much. I think he's hilarious. I think that using comedy to entertain the youth is a very good idea as it shows the idiocracy of
Or the 50 year
how
olds.
the it yeah,
Or the
it shows the
55-year-old
idiocracy to
Patriot fronters. Yeah.
yeah, right. It shows the dumbness of how all the Jewish trickery about like niggers and how the gay people have
Yo,
to support
the
them
hard
and
R's the only one. It's the only word
the
you
hard
can't
R is
say
the
on
only one.
kick. The only word.
Really?
Yeah, it's
I
the
thought Kick
only
was
way.
pretty sweet.
Like they'll let you get away with it, but you know.
Okay, I'll make sure I won't say it again then.
Yeah, just
But
yeah.
yeah. Anyway, back to what I was saying. The Jewish tricks about the LGBTQ and race. And when you see the comedy of that, it really shows how dumb it is. So now I'm just a full blown National Socialist. I think Adolf Hitler was a great man, and I'm ready for some revolution. I think that there is no political solution. And if you look at all of human history, there has never been a political solution that actually worked. It was always been a violent uprising, because that's how the world speaks, is through violence. And I'm not calling for violence, obviously. I'm calling for people to train and get ready for and prepare for possible violence in the future. Wink, wink. So that is a general outline of my position.
Yeah. I don't, we already talked about it, but we talked about it a little over the phone, but obviously, that's like, I think that's super retarded, but I do think it's kind of interesting how,
A lot.
sorry?
We do agree on a lot, though. You
Yeah,
have to
but
give it that.
I don't even think that's important because, like, I agree with, like, MAGA on 80% of things. It's like the stuff that we disagree on is probably the important stuff. You know what I mean? And
I see what you mean, John.
and I think it's kind of interesting how I think a lot of you, your types are they just want to do violence because like it's simple. That's really what it is. I think the people who gravitate towards the IRL, dress like a Nazi, Hitler was right. We got to do Hitler part two. There's no political solution. Those are just like low agency, impatient people.
Well, can you give me an
And dumb
example of a
people.
political solution that has worked in the last 2,000 years?
The Jewish one.
Right, but then we're becoming Jews. I don't think we want to
Did the
lower our
white people
standards so
win?
much. Did the
Name
white
what?
people win?
Name the violent, Nazi revolution that kept a country together and is still existing today.
Well, why don't you name
The Jews right now.
what I asked you to name?
I didn't have to. I said you didn't ask me to name. I said the Jews right now. I think if we're losing, why would we do the things that the other losers did?
Because it's evil, and I don't think we should stoop down
But you don't.
to
I
an
mean,
evil way. I mean, if
what's
you look
evil
at
about
how
saving the white race? What's
you're a
evil
Christian,
about it?
right?
Yeah.
You're a Christian, right?
Yeah.
So you have a moral basis. I remember we talked about this on the phone, and I think that we want to stick to generally being good people. And if
Let's
we
give it a chance,
dive
chat,
into,
before
so
we fucking
I know
hate
that
it.
the Groyper movement, they want to basically use Jewish strategies to infiltrate lobbies and basically trick the Jews who are running. It's kind of hard to trick the people
It's not
when
about
they've made
no,
up
it's
a
not about
strategy.
tricking. It's not about like practicing usury. It's just about occupying institutions. Institutions
Right,
control power. The only way to
right.
oust that power is to
Explain to me
become it.
how you want to explain to me how you want to infiltrate these institutions.
Become wealthy, become political, and in every institution, whatever one like fits you best personally, I guess, whichever one you have the opportunity to be a part of, occupy space in it and don't get in trouble. And when it is time, when we get to a point in the country where people like us are the majority, we can just act independently. You don't have to coordinate really. You independently act, and we change things. You just start changing things. It's not that hard. If the entire country agrees with us, and we get to a point like even more than now where most people hate Israel a lot. Most people are anti-Semitic. Most people are traditional. They're returning to Christianity, right? We won't actually have to do. There's no need for this like low time preference violence thing. We will just occupy space that they used to, and when they're not occupying space anymore, they won't have as much influence. And when they can't influence us, then they can't win. So we just need to be, it's very simple. Like we just need to occupy space in these institutions. And in the same way Jews don't meet up and say, this is what the Jews are doing this week, you just do pro-America, pro-white things when you can. And over time, in the same way Jews have been doing that since the 30s, we just have to do it in the other direction. And then once we're in power, we can make all the changes necessary in government to make sure it never happens again. I think
So
that
we
makes
use the
perfect
same
sense.
strategy. We use the same strategy that people that
But
worship
I want
Satan.
you to explain how that strategy is evil. Also, you don't believe in Satan, but I want you to explain to me how that
I do.
strategy is evil. Satan opposes who?
God.
And who's God?
God is the creator.
Okay, but what's his name?
God.
Right. There we
God
go.
doesn't have a name.
Yeah, God does have a name. It's Jesus Christ. And that's my point.
Well, I
And
don't
that's my point.
worship Jews.
That's my
I
point.
don't
Exactly.
believe
You don't
Jesus
even have
God.
like a document that prescribes your religion, and then you use the Christian word for
That's just a
the
guy.
angel who rejected God. Satan isn't even like the devil. Satan is the word for the fallen angel, head of all demons, Lucifer. So, but whatever. It's like I don't see how that is evil. I want you to explain to me how occupying institutions is immoral.
Because you're sneaking your way in. You're basically being a snake. And I have a question for you actually
Yeah.
about the Jewish. I noticed that a lot of the Groypers, so they comment on Jewish power and Jewish supremacy, but they don't take it all the way. So, what is your position on the Jewish influence of Christianity, and what is
Okay,
your
name
position?
it. What do you mean? What about it? Obviously, you're referring
Well,
to
Jews,
something.
Christians, are Jewish. So, what? Why don't you guys do? Why don't you guys investigate that? You guys seem to.
It's not a
I've tried
question.
debating
Ask the
with Groypers.
question. Why don't you investigate Christianity being Jewish? Okay. How's it Jewish?
Yeah,
Well,
you
it's
don't take it
Jewish.
all the way.
Investigate it. Give me a question I can answer.
My comment is that you guys don't seem to fully take the Jewish thing all the way, like the quote unquote Wignats or Nazis do. They look at the how
Neither did Hitler.
every
don't you believe Hitler didn't either?
well
You
he
opened with Hitler was right about everything. Okay, neither did Hitler.
yeah
And honestly,
he
Hitler was
honored
very
Christianity.
soft on the Jewish people, considering what they did to his people in his lifetime. But
That's true.
so, okay, like what? The guy you said was right about everything was softer than most people are today.
Well, why don't you guys investigate
Why
the
didn't Hitler
Jewish influence of
investigate Jewish people? Why don't you
because he was
Nazis?
a Scot?
Why don't Nazis investigate Jewish people and the origins of their
I
idol and
do.
creator of their ideology, Hitler?
I do investigate the Jewish question,
Okay, and
and I
Hitler was
take it my
wrong about
way.
Jews. Would be the answer there, right?
What?
Hitler was wrong
Now
about
I'm off track.
Jews, right? Well,
Hitler was
Hitler was
wrong about
soft
Jews?
on Jews, right? So clearly he didn't understand them, and he was incorrect, right?
Uh, I I think we're off track on that. I'm not
No, no,
sure where
no.
you're
I'm
taking.
applying the same standards you are. But actually mine makes more
You're
sense
just
because I'm,
reversing it because
damn it.
Hitler is like my Jesus Christ, is what you're saying?
Well, you know, you can say Christianity, and it's like 1,000 different denominations, and even within Catholicism, it's 11 different rites, I think, and there's it's existed for like literally 3,000 years almost, and there's been wildly different people with different experiences, with Jewish people writing wildly different things, and then I ask you about the creator of your ideology, Nazism, you know, the creator of Nazism, and it's like, was he, which is like a lot more pointed and easy to see that Hitler was wrong on Jews, and Hitler was softer on Jews than a lot of the Catholic saints were with their writings, and so it's
Yeah, he
very
must have just
interesting
wanted
that
to.
someone like you would criticize Christianity for being weak on the Jews when your idol Hitler was weaker than like
Well, no,
a
Christians
third of our
worship.
saints. You know, we pray to saints who said Jews are like devil spawn. Some people do, where that's quotes from them that they view Jews as like almost, you know, almost as like literally like the devil. Some of them said some stuff like that, and then like Hitler wanted to, his Hitler assisted them in founding Israel, and it's like, okay, well, if we're gonna compare religions and views and value systems or whatever, your value system's founder was weaker on Jews than like the earliest saints. And I think that's important when we're
I
criticizing
don't think so.
Christianity
So
comparatively to Hitler.
I'm not so sure about that because Hitler wanted to deport the Christ or the Jewish and, well, to an extent, the Christian, as Christianity is based on Judaism, and he had many comments about how
Yeah,
Christianity
I'm
is
familiar with Hitler's
part of the
comments. Yeah,
problem.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So we both know about that. Okay. So back to my original point.
It's
Why
important
do
to
you
note
guys
that
not think?
Hitler was elected by an entirely Christian population. Go ahead. I just think that's
Yeah,
important.
right. But he was not a Christian per se.
No, no, he was
He
not
honored
practicing.
Christianity. He would attend church occasionally, but he never was practicing. That's for
No.
sure. And but yeah, he actually had morals. He didn't want to murder these people. He
From
wanted to
where?
deport them. From where?
Where did Hitler get his morals?
I wouldn't know about that, but I'm assuming just from being a generally good human being.
Yeah, good in what
And
standard?
that's where I get my morals
Yeah,
from.
good in what
I can
standard?
tell
You just
humans
said
are
they're like
born
good
with
in
right.
what's good in how? Good to whose standard?
I believe that all humans are born with the ability to know right from
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah, but like
And
in America, our standard of good is different than India's standard of good, right?
well, India's a third world country.
Right.
Like
So obviously that's not exactly true
they're
what
not
you just
wonderful.
said, or they'd all be different. Okay. So where did Hitler get his idea of morality from?
I would assume from his studies and
Would you
from his born innate ability to
would
tell
you
right
think
from
it's
wrong.
like being born in like a country where all of its cultural values are based off Christianity? Do you think that
Not
probably
to
impacted his morals?
not to an extent, but considering that he wasn't a Christian, I wouldn't say that
Your
that would
idea of good and evil,
support
like
him.
literally I asked you what's good and you said like literally the golden rule, which is like Christianity. So it's like even your concepts are good and evil are determined
Right,
by
but
the
all
culture,
actions
which
have
is
an equal
Christian.
reaction.
That doesn't mean anything. What you just
It
said doesn't
does
make
mean
anything.
actually something.
What does it
It
mean?
does.
What do you mean by that? All actions have an opposite
It
reaction.
means when people are abused, they will fight back, and they have an innate right to do so.
Yeah, okay. I'm just saying you're like Hitler,
Actually,
your morality is totally through this lens of Christian morality. And if you're going to say, well, it's white European, well, that's Christianity, that's
well,
Catholicism. So again,
no.
even like Hitler, again, I would like to criticize Hitler. Hitler's weakness, which you view Christianity as this weakness, Hitler's hesitation and weakness to do whatever was necessary um, with the Jews would be his Christian morality. So he was wrong about that too. His values were too Christian. would you say? Because I
Well, I
like
believe
talking
for
about Hitler
eye
with
for an eye.
Nazis. It's very interesting.
I believe in eye for an eye, and
That's
I
from the
think
Old
that that's
Testament.
not.
That's interesting. That's actually a
Yeah,
quote from
so
the
an
Old
eye for an
Testament.
eye.
You know, the Jews. Anyways,
Yeah, but so many things are
you
Jews.
believe in
So
eye for an eye is you're believing in that, which is like a quote from the Old Testament, which you believe was like just a bunch of Jews. But me believing in, occupying space within institutions to export pro-white, pro-American influence on the country is Jewish and evil. But you can quote a Jew and say, I agree with this explicitly. That's not Jewish and evil. I just think that's interesting.
see,
I feel
I
like your
believe in a
criticisms don't really mean
masculine.
anything. They're just like,
Well, I believe in a masculine worldview where men actually fight for their right to survive, basically.
yeah, Jay Papers.
And I don't think that occupying spaces, kind of sneaking your way into spaces, is very masculine. And that's one of the things that the Jews have basically. I mean, they've done everything in their power to
Have the Jews conquered
destabilize
us?
our society. Not
Have they
yet.
conquered America? Do they own America?
They own all our media. They
Right.
own
They've conquered
uh,
America.
culture.
What is not masculine about conquering America?
Well, they conquered it in the most feminine way possible, with trickery and cheating and lying. And I don't believe in lying, cheating, or stealing.
But I'm not saying to do any of those things. Also, those are all Christian standards. But I'm not advocating for any of those things. Because then I would
Well,
be
just
telling
because I
people to go
agree
to
with
hell.
Christianity doesn't mean I am
Well,
a
what's wrong with
Christian.
stealing from your
Like,
enemy? That's strength. That's masculinity. What's wrong with about lying to your enemy and to conquer them? That's strength. They're dumber than you.
lying
You
to your
manipulate
enemy
them.
is Jewish.
Huh?
Lying to your enemy is a Jewish trait,
Stealing from your
and
enemy?
you do it in
Conquering,
fear.
taking what's theirs? That's
Conquering,
Jewish.
I would say, is not. I would say that's a masculine trait. But lying, you do that out of fear because you are too afraid to allow them to know the truth. So you do it as a way to sneak around, and that is not a masculine trait.
Okay, but what does that mean? Okay, the people who are too masculine lose? Because all of the people who agree with what you believe with do nothing and have nothing in America.
Well, just because a battle was lost doesn't mean the war was fully lost.
The battle is only being the only people fighting back are people occupying institutions.
The Jews never undeclared war on Germany,
This is not even an
so we
answer
are still
to
at
what I just
war.
said. The only people actually doing anything are the people doing what I would say that they should do. And the only people, you can't even name one successful person from your side of the right who have actually done anything meaningful.
Right, but we're still at war. We're not. This war isn't finished.
Okay,
We
but
still have time,
when are
and
you
we're
guys going
still
to do so? Because this is really my criticism, or I guess like my confusion. It's like people from the most inactive, predominantly made up of dumb people, which we both had agreed on originally, that side of the right, have done nothing. And it's really easy to
we're
criticize the
conquered.
people doing things, but they haven't done anything. And they've been active longer, like a lot longer in this country, and still have had no
It's a much
success in
smaller
any
faction, though.
capacity. No, no, it's not. But these people have been active since the 60s, the 50s,
Really?
the 70s. There was an entire string of government operations from our government dismantling these like national socialist white supremacists, and I don't mean that in like the liberal way, but like literally what they self-identified as groups, and
Those are not
arresting them.
national
And now
socialists. Those are Nazis.
I said different
There's a
things.
difference between. I know, but there's a difference between national socialists and
That's
Nazis.
why I said white supremacists
Neo-Nazis
and national
are
socialists, because
ghetto.
there were
Yeah,
the
neo-Nazis.
non-groups, the non that would be that. And now today, what we have is a bunch of people on the same side of politics doing it the exact same way in a country where it is easier to track and find people, easier to go to jail, and it's like they still haven't done anything. By the way, there's no accomplishment. Name the accomplishment of the IRL active training Nazi right. What have they done?
Those are all white trash that
Okay,
you're
name.
talking
Give
about.
me a group
The
that's done
National
something
Socialist, the
of
National
active National
Socialist
Socialists.
faction that is actually clean, professional, and actually
Can I get
can
a
get something
an
done
achievement
is
then?
just getting started.
What have they done?
There are no achievements. We're just getting started.
Okay, so where does this?
These Nazis we're talking about are white trash idiots who have
Okay, so it's
no,
never
are
been done
probably
right, is what you're saying?
no, they weren't even. They're not even really
So I'm saying
National
the far right
Socialists.
has
They
never
really just
been done
became.
correctly.
They're not any different than. Well, I can't say the N word. They're not any different than black thugs.
I
Basically, is what
agree.
I'm trying to
What
say.
about, do you agree with Joel Davis or do you view him that way as well?
I'm not familiar with Joe Davis.
Okay, well then, who is a person or a group or that what you would say is that we should see you as? Because Hitler's revolution was a bunch of thugs. Mussolini's revolution was a bunch of violent thugs in the most plain way. And so if you believe revolution is the only way, but everyone who's isn't doing it right, National Socialists do it right. The first National Socialists did it with a bunch of street fighting thugs. And now it's like the first fascists the same way. Franco was a bloody civil war. And it's like, so now I'm waiting for these clean cut non-thuggish white people to come out and do a civil war to save America. Is that like the plan?
To an extent, that would be my ideal scenario. Yes,
And do you
is
think
we
this
get
is something that will be
actual clean.
realized and successful?
I'm going to do my best to make sure it is realized.
And you think that'll
We do
work? You're
not
going to
need
fight the US
these,
government?
we do not need these white thugs who are low IQ and don't actually have any skill sets to bring to the table
Like HT.
managing the nationalist movement. What we need is intelligent, high performing Gen Z young men who are really pissed off because their youthful childhoods were stolen from them by these Jewish supremacists who have decided that they wanted to take over our entire country through lobbying and lying and cheating and stealing. And I've met many young men who are very high performing, who are not Christian, and who are intelligent and well spoken and clean cut. So I think we'll be able to actually get the job done, which is to congregate so
Murder.
that when you have an opportunity to
Do
strike
terrorism and murder.
right,
That's what it is.
also wrong, because we wouldn't actually be murdering innocent people.
Well, why do you care about murder? The only distinction, the only people who need to distinct murder from killing are Christians. So I don't even know why you would even care.
Because I was
Because
born
murder is
with
a
a
Christian
moral compass.
concept.
Death. You're saying death, someone being killed, is a Christian concept.
No, killing isn't. Murder is totally a Christian
Murder
concept.
is.
The idea that someone
Fine.
who has total power over someone else, for them to kill them, is wrong. That is Christian. That is
Well, if it's
totally Christian.
unjustified, I think it is wrong. But if it is
Yeah, that is
justified,
the
I think it
definition
is
of
correct.
murder. That is the Christian idea. That's the Christian ideal.
Right, but you
It's
guys,
one of the
I'm not so
radical
sure about that
thoughts of
because if we look
Christianity.
at Austin Metcalf's dad, he wants to forgive this guy for killing his son. He wants to pray with him, and I'm
Yeah,
not so
I
sure
disagree with
that
him.
makes any sense.
I don't think he's a Christian either,
Well,
though.
he's a Christian, but he is a Christian.
Does he
What
go
makes
to
him not a
God's
Christian?
church?
I believe I read an article that said he was a devout Christian, but
Yeah, does he go to
that opinion,
Jesus's church?
I, if I'm mistaken, let me know. Is
He
he not a
doesn't.
Christian?
He's not. Catholics are Christians. Protestants are not. I don't really see them
Oh,
as totally Christian. I mean, like believing in
okay,
God
gotcha,
doesn't make
gotcha.
you. That's like believing in anything. That's not enough to quantify someone's
So
Christianity.
what would the Catholic position on your son being killed by a black thug be? How would
I'm.
you react?
How would I
Would you,
react? Me? Not like
yes,
that.
if that was
I
your
would want him
son,
to get
how
the
would you
death
react?
sentence. I would want him to get the death sentence. Totally.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't think we should act like animals. I don't think I need to go murder a boy. I think the law should do that. I believe in the law. But I don't think that I would want him to be okay. I don't want him to get off scot free. I wouldn't tell protesters to not politicize this. I wouldn't
Right.
say
That's
I'm not
totally gay.
racist, but I think acting out violently in the same way that black people do is just acting like black people, and the people who win are gonna still be the Jews who don't even deal with that. Like there is a bunch of black thuggish crime all the time, you know, and the Jews are. It doesn't matter if it's happening or not for the Jew, because the Jew beats out smart white people every day because they're subverting them. And the only place you can
Right.
really
Right.
actually attack Jewish power is the institutions. And if you're someone who's aware of them, you can beat them. And what you're proposing is that like people go do violence like black thugs do, which will attract, which will change nothing in the Jewish area, but you'll get cracked down so hard by the government because they hate white people. So it's like your idea is to do what's never worked in American history and been tried 100 times, and you criticize
That's a
occupying
very young country.
institutions because what? Because it's feminine. I'd rather have done something feminine and live in America again. There's no virtue in dying like that, and like doing something criminal and wrong and then losing anyway. There's no virtue in that.
Well, I'm not saying we need to just charge the Capitol January 6th style. I'm saying we actually bring some intelligence into this
Yeah, but
vision.
to
We
do a
sit
violent
there
revolution.
Yeah, 1776 style.
Yeah. What do you mean? Yeah, that's exactly what I just said. It doesn't work. Like, do you read American history? Like, do you know? Like
What? Because
within the
they do
first two
all the work.
years, no, within the first 2 years of the American government being independent and not at war, there was a rebellion we immediately put down. And they were protesting taxes on alcohol. And we killed them all. Like our government doesn't actually do that. This is propaganda. This is like a romanticized ideal of America, but we don't let that happen. And now the military budget is like trillions and trillions, hundreds and trillions, like hundreds of billions of dollars a year. You know, since our history's founded, it's like hundreds of trillions of dollars, or not hundreds, that's a lot, but trillions and trillions of dollars, tens of trillions of dollars. And like, you think you can beat that? Also, I do think
Not
what you would be doing
necessarily.
is wrong, but also it just wouldn't work. And then you criticize people who do stuff that has worked, is currently working. You can observe it working in America today. And you say, well, I don't like that because it's feminine. Well, you seem like someone who's like hyper masculine, like
Yeah.
almost on purpose. Like this is like an attachment to an idea, like you're. It's like when I say neo Nazis are LARPing as Hitler. It's like this hyper masculine thing is like a LARP as a man, if that makes sense. Because it's like
A LARP is
I
a
don't
man.
I don't think men need to be hyper masculine because
Why not?
being a man is just it's like you're either a man or you're not. And if you're like trying so hard to be perceived as masculine, it's as if like you're projecting masculinity. You're not just like masculine people don't need to be hyper masculine. They're just masculine. It's who they are.
I think our ancestors were hyper masculine, and they definitely did project that hyper masculinity
Okay,
into the
how?
world. How?
Who?
They conquered nations, Europeans. And you say
That's
that
that's
the
just
violent
war.
thug,
That's just war. That's just masculinity.
right? War is masculine
Yeah,
to
it's
an
not
extent.
hyper masculine,
Well,
which
as a
is what you opened with.
counterreaction
And
to
that's like exactly, it's a reaction. It's not actually authentic.
counterreaction to feminism.
It's not authentic.
Why not?
It's you just said it's a counter you're doing it because of feminism. Without feminism it wouldn't be there. Like that's
Right.
what I
And
mean.
I
Like
could just be
you should just
myself,
be
and I could just be
masculine.
this.
Like
Right, but we
like
need a
this
reaction to fight against the people attacking our young men.
yeah, and your solution is to let them continue to control America while you train in the woods for the right time and the right
Create a
place.
nation within a nation.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Okay, so your strategy
What do you think
is to
Waco
infiltrate
was? Sorry.
Waco.
Yeah.
That wasn't national socialist. That was
Yeah, it was more legal. They weren't socialists. They weren't thugs. They break no laws. They committed no crimes. They had a real business. They weren't isolationists. They were active in the community. and they got their house burnt down and a bunch of children and men and innocent families murdered. What do you think there's gonna? You think they're gonna let you build the revolution compound in the woods? Like that's just gonna happen?
Probably in my state, yeah. It's pretty rural out here.
And what will you do from rural nowhere?
I will congregate and train and have a mini army so that we can defend ourselves against the invasion
Of who?
of illegal immigrants.
So now you're not fighting the Jew. Now you're fighting whatever the Jew lets in through the
Those
waterway. You
are the
know.
Jews. Those are the soldiers of the Jews. We got to at least
You're
be able
gonna
to protect
kill like
ourselves
what?
from
You're gonna
those.
destroy every immigrant until there's not a soldier left for the Jews. Like that's what I mean. Like the obvious solution is to just there's Jewish power in America from the government and from corporations. Oh, you should just like I think it's very clear. Oh, just like become the institutions and then they can't influence them.
I think creating a
Your plan
nation
is
within a
very
nation.
convoluted. It makes no sense. I don't need to create another nation. I'm an American. I live in America. We have
Well,
a
no, you're just
nation.
creating a sub nation within America that you actually are able to fully control. We don't have any Jewish influence in that nation. And as you grow that nation, then you can actually someday, in theory, if you guys don't succeed. So the theory is
This is
if you guys
insane.
succeed, then this is all just a waste of time. And we'll come out of it and we'll just be a bunch of really tough guys who have a bunch of farms. But if you guys fail, then we have at least some kind of compound where we can actually survive the threat of war and the blood on the streets that will likely happen.
I don't see that. Where do any of but you're the first, so it's not like I could compare this to anything else. You literally believe it's never been done. It's kind of an impenetrable position. If I criticize any
Well,
other
it's
group, it
been
didn't
done.
happen. And if I criticize Hitler, would you open as I'm a Nazi, Hitler was right. Well, Hitler was wrong about
Yeah,
that.
he was a great man.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. So it's like you're arguing for something that doesn't exist, you haven't created yet, and will be ostensibly perfect. In
Well,
idea,
ideally, yeah.
in idea is perfect. Not in practice,
I'm
obviously.
arguing for the idea because we haven't created it yet.
Yeah. And there's no way to prove that this works other than it's masculine. And that's what I say. This is like silly. This is like building a treehouse.
Well, your idea is to basically fight Jews with Jewish
You know why
strategies.
you
How
won't
do you prove
criticize
that
my
it's not
idea? You
gonna
know why
work?
you won't ask me a question like, oh, name one success? Because they're everywhere. That's
Yeah,
why.
because
That's
lies
why I can
win.
ask you questions like, name one success and you can't answer because I know there isn't one. And the reason you don't ask me questions like that is because there's countless successes.
Well, because I don't want to use lies in my strategy.
No, people who do what you do don't do anything. People who do
They
what you
create a
do don't
nation within a
change anything. They just exist to like suck energy off a movement that is doing something.
Well, how am I sucking energy off of your movement?
You want to take young motivate quote from you. I see a bunch of smart, intelligent, motivated, capable young men, and you want them
Right.
to go sit in the woods with you and train instead of like get involved now.
That is getting involved.
No, that's sitting in the woods and training to get involved.
Right. How can you get involved if you're not even fit? How do you run a country if you
I
can't
don't
even
think
run your
it's
own
very
country?
hard to be fit. I don't think you need to live in the woods to not be fat. I don't think living in the woods will help you run the country. I think going to college and getting educated would probably help you in that goal.
Going to college,
Yeah,
not learning, not researching online and learning from books.
I think if you need to be told to research books whilst going through college, you're probably not going to do anything anyway.
So
Like
what's up with college though? That's a little bit
that's how you
strange to
get
me
into the
considering the colleges are
because
controlled by the
colleges
Jewish
yeah,
institutions.
because they pull people out of those institutions to move up. And if all of those if those people agree with us, then people like us get pulled into the institutions.
Right, but college is already corrupted. So what colleges are you
The
like
country's
specifically talking
corrupted.
about?
What do you mean? Everything's
Yeah.
corrupted. We're talking on Discord.
So
Your phone costed
yeah,
too much money. What do you mean
corrupted
everything's
cloud.
corrupted?
So you're saying that everything's corrupted, so it's okay to delve into the corruption a little bit.
That's like saying
Or
America's
what?
corrupted. We should leave right now.
No, we should change things.
You're right. Change things like the corrupted institutions. How would you do that? By being there.
By diving into the
How do you
corruption
change
and
something by
potentially
not
corrupt.
being there?
How do you know that you'll
How
remain
do
if
you
you
how do you
go
like
all in
what? What do you
your
mean?
corruption?
Definitely
So
unpacks.
we're saying that we're going to use the Jewish tactics. How do you remain
You
like? And
call
then you're
them
saying also
Jewish
that we're going
because you
to use.
can't call them evil anymore, and you want to like make a connection. Go ahead.
Well, the Jewish strategy is evil. It's inherently
But you can't
everything
tell me
about the
how.
Talmud is evil.
When did the
I
Jews
can't tell
invent
you how.
be when did the Jews invent occupying institutions created by white people, our ancestors? When did the Jews invent that? I'm curious. You know the
They're doing it right
institutions in our
now.
country
They're the
created by our
Shakespeare on the
people,
basis
it's
that they said
Jewish to
that.
be in those
It's Jewish to use the Jewish strategies. Is my comment.
because they're Jewish and no other reason.
They're inherently evil. They're morally wrong. They're sneaky. They're using tactics that
Morality
lower
defined
your
by no
own
God,
moral
and
compass.
these actions are all things that you would
Defined
be
by the
doing.
human spirit.
That's nothing. That's like saying my fucking skin, my rock makes my like tells me my mood. That doesn't mean anything. It's a self-serving answer. It's like circular. Well, my humanity, my human morality is
All
guided by my
humans.
human spirit. What does that mean?
Would you say that humans are born with the inherent ability to tell right from wrong? Yes or no?
Um, the Christian perspective is very little, not very well at all. And then after baptism, yes, you will feel a more serious. You'll have more weight on your conscience. But before, yeah, I guess minimally, if all humans were capable from understanding right from wrong, we'd all agree, by the way, on right or wrong, and there'd be no like differences culturally. But you know, so obviously that isn't true. Even if we're isolating that just to whites, then all of our laws and legal systems would look identical. But even like you look at Rome versus the Germanic kingdoms, and clearly they were different, not just culturally, but like with what they
Of course.
valued legally. So obviously, like right and wrong isn't like objectively objective between every human and their human spirit. It's just like something that sounds trad. So I think you say it.
Well, but that doesn't really saying Roman and Germanic cultures
I'm
were
saying if morality was
sufficient doesn't really
inscribed
say
onto
anything
every
about human
person who is
evolution.
human, why do we have different standards of legal is like different standards of
Because
laws
everyone has
between
the right to choose.
different white societies? No, this would
Because
be
we
like
all have the right to
intrinsic.
choose.
No, they all
We have
so you're
free.
telling me there's entire countries and cultures of white people who all felt that they were doing something wrong but never changed?
Of course. Why wouldn't there be?
Because they all equally felt it was wrong, perhaps.
Yeah, but
I feel
people
like
sin all the time. You're a Christian. People sin all the time.
yeah, I think
Of
because
course,
they're not
different cultures are
baptized.
going to have
I
different.
think yeah, but I believe like you fulfill a condition and then things change. And then if you look at countries that convert to Christianity, you look at Christian kingdoms, they had very similar legal systems of right and wrong because it's defined by a structured religion.
And I acknowledge that Christianity does teach people to be inherently good. I acknowledge it. And that's why I probably want my wife to be Christian so that she's afraid of being a piece of shit, if that makes sense. But anyway, we're kind of off topic. So,
No,
um,
I think we're on topic. I just think like what you think doesn't make sense, and I think it contradicts itself. And I think
yeah, I'm
you
trying to go
are.
back to that.
But that's what like I just asked you questions, and now we're here. Okay, like your idea of good and evil is based off the human spirit, which doesn't it isn't really a real thing. And then your solution is to
Well,
pull
I think
white
all
people
people are born with it.
out of the fight, and
Well, not pull white people out of the fight. What
no,
did
to
I
go
say? I wanted
train
to.
for the fight that's coming. That's what you said, right?
I want to train. Yeah,
So
but
pull
why
them
can't they
out
be
now.
politically active? Why? How does that not mean they're politically active? Like, or how does that mean that if I'm having them train
You
with
just
me
told me you're
to be
someone who shows their face
hyper-masculine?
and full name on the internet. You just told me on a live
Yeah,
stream that you're a Nazi and Hitler was right. And you walk
of
around with a
course, yeah,
swastika shirt, right?
I do.
What political change do you think you're going to make?
I'm gonna
You don't even
teach
believe,
people
you actually said you don't even believe in a political solution. So how can you even be politically active if there's no political solution?
because all countries are run through politics, and when you have a revolution that is political in nature, that is a political change.
Yeah, but the action itself is not. Like, that's what I mean. Like,
Right, but running the new country is
so
political.
you can't be
We
politically
already have
active.
intelligence.
That's posts. You're not there. You're nowhere near there. You're not even at the training part yet. So your plan is to train for an upcoming fight, wait for the time, and then when the time comes, you guys will have trained your minds and bodies to be prepared to run the entire country.
And in essence, yeah, that's mostly what my
Okay, but
ideal.
where people are fighting right now. So you're pulling them out of the fight right now to train for the right time.
Well, what are they fighting? What are they doing? What are you doing
What do you mean?
politically? What are you doing? That's
Yeah, I'm going to tell you where I live and what
in,
I'm doing. Great
no, I'm not
question.
asking for your. I'm not
I'm
asking
not
for you
going to
to
tell
confirm
you what I'm
your.
doing. I'm not going to tell you because I don't want that defeats the whole purpose, does it not?
Well, you're commenting on how I'm not doing anything, but then you're not
Because there
telling
are
me.
greater achievements done by people who believe in what I believe in. Like it's replicable. It's done before.
So you're saying because Nick Fuentes has convinced a lot of people that that
No,
makes
there are people who are now influenced and now go to and now are those ideas are seen in the political world, in government, right? In the institutions. They're seen. There's been
right.
change by
So
people like Nick by Nick. Yeah. So there's achievement there. Those changes come from people, right? Putting those there, putting them on your screen. How does that get on your screen? You know what I mean?
right, but
Even
Jews
Trump
still own
getting
the.
elected was done by a bunch of young far right white people in America who,
Right, but we
against
didn't even
their own
actually
party,
support Trump.
voted and did IRL like political activism for Donald Trump.
Right, but Trump actually winning was actually an inherently, and even according to Nick Fuentes, I agree with him on this take that Trump winning was actually negative because we want more right
That
wing
doesn't
backlash.
that's not even what we're talking about. I'm just saying that getting Trump elected, we can say that in hindsight, but at the time we all
It
thought
was young
Trump was
white
good.
men.
Yeah, so politically active young white men fighting the fight right now got Trump elected. And they did that by fighting the institutions to get Trump elected. And they've had to fight to Jew Donald Trump. And we've seen this happen over time. Like
Okay,
we
so
put a guy in office that the Jews still butt heads with. You know what I mean? And it wasn't even by a bunch of based and red pilled people. And now we live in a country where ex congressmen go on podcasts and say and talk about Jews just like openly and not like Groyper ones or far right ones, regular ones, and like Matt Gaetz. And I think it's very interesting, like you're gonna say that Nick and people like him didn't create like the social conditions for that to be acceptable speech, like it wasn't them.
okay, social conditions.
Yeah, because society and culture is downstream from politics. Yeah, in the institutions. Yeah,
Yeah, but Jews still run the institutions. And why would they give
it's
up?
like you don't hear. They
Well,
have to
why would they
die
give
and they
up?
get old and die. Like, what do you mean? Why would they give up? Jews leaving America because it's not good for them, because people don't like them, because they get old and die and they can't own a position forever. The American government has the power to break up corporations, and the American government is made up by a bunch of people like me who agree with people like who think like me. We can just break up companies that we don't like. Like that
So we
is the
can
power
still
of the American
infiltrate the
government.
government,
Just like they
have
did it
no
to us, you just do
consequences,
it the same.
do it the same to them.
I
Yeah.
just said I
So
just
we
said you can talk about it. I said you create the conditions to push people our way.
people know.
Elections are
Yeah.
political. They were like we live in a country with elections. So obviously you have to talk about things. Like you need them to vote for you. But advocating for a violent revolution and then dressing like a wig or and then that's not really you, but doing the whole Hitler thing, I guess, doesn't do that, and it doesn't contribute.
Yeah, I
It
don't
takes
dress like a
away.
wigger.
I know. That's why I said
I
it didn't
dress
apply to
in
you.
military pants and yeah. So anyway, um, the political solution that, and I think you're right. I think it could work. I'll give it a fair shot. I think it could work. Taking power back. It's just my concern about it is that you're using the same strategy as the Jewish one, which I believe would make it inherently evil,
Based
based off of
on,
what I've seen people are capable of.
hold on.
Anonymous sent $14.88.
Thank you, Anonymous. Thank you for the super chat. Love you, buddy. W's in chat for Jake. Thank you, Jake. Love you, buddy. But yeah. Thank you, buddy. I'll talk to you after this. Well, I'll see you in chat after this. But yeah, I just think it's kind of crazy to like you know, I don't, I've done this debate 1,000 times, and it's like, it's the same roadblock.
Yeah,
Yeah, where someone will go,
I've
we
done
need to get active, and I go, okay, but what does it do, and what are your achievements? And they say nothing and do nothing, and then they criticize what people like me do, and I refute them, and now you're saying what they say. Well, it could work. We're the backup plan. It goes from I disagree with you, you're wrong, to we're the back. Well, what if it doesn't work? You'll need people like us. And the difference between our positions is
yeah.
your whole idea is like contingent on ours not being successful, which seems kind of silly. Wouldn't you just want to help ours be successful then, if you believe there's some validity to it? I don't think yours will ever work, because if people can't even talk or be political about it, nothing's stopping them from shooting you. Nothing's stopping them from drone striking your whatever. They don't even have to do it. They don't have to give a reason. Know what I mean? It's what they do. They shoot people for
Right, that's
less.
inherently evil.
They've killed groups for less.
That's my problem with it. It's the morality of it that's my problem with that. They are inherently evil, and evil never wins.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, it
Evil wins all the
battles.
time.
It never wins the war. It never wins the war. Lying never wins. You never win by being a liar.
Israel exists. The Jews run our country. I'm not saying to lie, though. I agree. God will punish. You don't believe that, because I believe Jesus is going to come back and like put them all in hell. I don't know what you believe the end times are. So I agree with that, but I'm not saying lie. I'm not saying cheat. I'm not saying steal. I'm saying occupy space in institutions and pass and push pro-America, pro-white change.
Because I've heard Nick Fuentes say that I've heard him quote unquote say, we basically just need to use the Jewish strategy against them.
Yeah, of occupying and owning the institutions.
Occupy, right, and this is what Satan worshippers do.
No, Satan worshippers worship Satan. That's like saying Jews eat breakfast. Breakfast is done. We're done doing that. This isn't actually a refutation. Huh?
What do you think Jews worship? God?
No, they worship the devil.
Okay, so we're in agreement on that. And I mean, that's my thing, though. It just seems kind of like
devil worshippers walk to devil church. We shouldn't go to church anymore. Yes.
Well, no, you're saying
yes, we can do. Yes. You can do things if you're good, because what makes something evil is not the action, it's the intention of the taker. Like, the same logic you're using to say that is the same logic I could say that all guns are evil. It's so easy. Because something is a weapon, we shouldn't pick it up because it's an evil weapon. That doesn't make sense. That's this is like a very, honestly, I thought you would make a better argument, honestly, than this. I thought it would be stronger, because that's silly. That makes no sense. You apply this argument to any other scenario, it sounds silly. And you apply it to this one, and it doesn't make sense. Well, the Jews are evil. Oh, why? Because they worship the devil. Okay, so do Muslims, Freemasons, Indians, Natives, Africans. Can we not do anything any of those people do?
Or it's not really like a gun.
Yeah, it's a political weapon.
No, it's more like a virus. It's like saying, I'm going to create a virus to infect these people, but we're doing it for good. And that's why...
Like a vaccine?
Yeah. Like, we're creating a virus.
What do vaccines do?
Since we're the good guys, it's okay for us to create that virus and do the same thing that they did to us.
Yeah, don't you literally want to, do the Holocaust in America.
No, I don't believe in
Okay,
doing that. I'd
but
rather deport them to Madagascar.
like this is so silly. Like
I know some of the Nazis want to do a Holocaust.
that's
I don't want
so
to do
that's so silly.
that. I'd rather just get rid
It's
of
like
them.
a virus. No, it's not. It's a political weapon. Being in charge of institutions is good. Having money is good. Being successful is good. Weaponizing all of those things against our political enemies is good. That's what does stuff. Well, the Jews did that. Okay. The Jews wear shoes and go to church. Should we not? Like, this is silly.
They worship a different god.
Right, that's the
It's
argument I'm
God,
making.
the god of evil.
Right, so because we're good, it's okay when we do it. You just made my
But how do
argument
we
to
know
me.
we're good at this point? If we do the same thing
You
that
think it's intrinsic to
people
white
are
people,
saying.
so it doesn't matter. The good is our race, but I would say it's defined by their Christianity. But you, as someone who believes it's defined by race, should have no question to know if someone is good or not. The only question, if are they a race traitor? No, they're good. That's your standard. You believe it's intrinsic to the European.
Do you believe that white people and black people marrying is just? If it's
I
a
don't
holy
think
sin, if it's a religious
I
bond.
don't think it's like inherently. I don't think it's like evil in the sense that it's like comparable to murder, but I don't think it's good in any sense. I don't think it's a moral good.
Would you rather live in a world where there are white people but Christianity no longer exists, or where there's no okay wait.
Would I want
Would
to
you
live in
rather
a
live
world
in a
where I
world
die and go to hell? No. Would I
would
rather
you
live
rather
in an
live
atheist white country or a Christian brown country? I'd rather live in an atheist white country. But in the real world, we get to make the country, and I want to live in a white Christian one. So I can live in a white country, and all the people in my country go to heaven. So this is like, that's like a Reddit atheist argument to like prove Christians are
Reddit?
racist. Yeah. It's like a very famous Reddit
Well,
atheist
I
argument.
just bypass that all by not being a Christian. I can just say, oh, I'd rather just be in a white country because I
You're
want to be
forming
around
your
white people.
opinion to like a question your enemies would ask you. That's weakness.
What's weak about that? By wanting to be in a
I
white
don't
country.
format my worldview to questions my enemies would ask me to make me seem silly. Um, that's the weakness about your answer. Well, I bypass it. Well, it's like you're not any smarter for bypassing it. That doesn't give you any extra value. But white Christianity is for us. It's for everyone, and our countries are for us exclusively. So we get our white exclusive country, and we get our Christian religion.
Or
There's nothing.
European. What
There's
makes
nothing about.
Christianity European per se?
What'd you say?
What makes Christianity European?
It is our religion. It is the religion spread by the Europeans. It's the one that forms all of our cultures and laws. It's the one, Rome's in
Not from
Italy.
Europe, though.
Rome's in Italy.
Right. So Jews brought Christianity to Rome.
This depends on where you think
And
Jews come from, and if you buy into the narrative that Protestants have created about the origins of Christianity, which I do not, because I'm not Protestant.
what is your belief on the origins of Christianity?
I don't think like the people who call themselves Jews are probably the same Jews in the Bible. I don't think the Old Testament was a bunch of brown people, because those brown people in that area had not existed then. I think it's kind of weird to just like assume all
You
of the
think
origins of Christianity were just a bunch of like Ashkenazi Jews who are like more Slavic than they are Middle Eastern, to be fair, than it is like to
you
say it
think
was
the
just the
Jews of
same
New
Mediterranean
Testament?
people that made up of all of North Africa and a majority of, like Iberia and parts of Greece. It's like it's probably those people who are found
So you
in
think it was
Egypt.
basically just Mediterranean white people
Yeah,
who made
I think
this
yeah, it's probably.
Christian religion?
I don't think Jesus looked like a Jew. I don't think Jesus was an Ashkenazi Jew. I don't think there were a bunch of Arabs and brown people walking around, because those people didn't
So
live there.
when did they, in your belief system, when did they
Probably in the
take over that?
time gap between the Old and the New Testament. But that's like,
So probably
I
around
don't even
2000
think
years ago.
Judaism, like, I think Judaism exists in counter to Christianity. Like the Jews were told, the people were told that they were chosen or whatever, and then Jesus came and criticized them, and they created Judaism to continue their Talmudic, or that would go on to create their Talmudic religion, you know, and Christianity predates Judaism. Like, that is fundamental to Christianity. So I think it's like very silly. Like, I don't like what you're saying
Christianity
only exists if
predates
you believe what
Judaism.
Jews say about Jewish history, and I don't agree with Jews. Yeah. Like, the only people who say
I've never heard
Christianity
that statement before.
exists, the only people who say Judaism is older than Christianity is ethnic Jews who believe in Judaism, because that is what their belief
And
is.
Zionists.
Yeah, or in
Zionist Christians
Protestants.
too.
But those people aren't really Christian. And I'm a Christian that believes in the first church of God, established by God. I believe the Old Testament people worship God. Well, who's God? Jesus. Okay, so clearly we're in a bunch of Jews. Makes no sense to believe any other way. So
So Jesus
this
is God.
argument you're making is contingent on the Jews being correct on everything they tell you, and you believe Jews are liars. So I think that's kind of silly.
Well, it explains a lot more of your. I'm able to understand your positions a lot more.
But
With,
but it's kind of
if
irrelevant, because it's like the original
Judaism.
conversation we're talking about is, would you rather live in a non-Christian white country or a Christian brown one? And I get to live in whatever one I want, because it's the real world, and I get to live in mine.
Well,
So
maybe,
I think
yeah.
it's irrelevant. Why would you curtail your worldview to that question? Well, you don't actually get one. We can have what we want, because we're the ones fighting for it.
Yeah, hopefully we can have a white country.
And Christianity is true. So
have
why would I have
generations of white people.
why would I have a bunch
Well, how
of
do you know it's true?
prove it wrong right now?
Prove it wrong. I think we'll save that for the second.
Shroud of
debate,
Turin.
but,
Shroud of Turin. They found evidence of the kingdom of David existing. I don't know. Read some Egyptian history. They talk about the Old Testament and the
right,
tribes.
it comes a lot from Egyptians.
But they found documents from the Old Testament kingdom of Israel itself. I don't know, thousands of witnesses, testimony of Pilate and his wife, who's a saint. I don't know, like, read anything from the people who were non-Christians at the time of observing and see what they say. So I think, why would they lie? Why would people die? I don't know. I could say personal experiences with God, but that's irrelevant. What is your belief? You don't even believe in anything, so it's like you've attached yourselves to all of the worst parts of, like, original National Socialism. It's like a rejection of Christianity, violence, a rejection of intellectualism. It's like Hitler would have never gotten power, even in your world, if we're going to compare it to Hitler, if he didn't have allies and institutions, which he did. Just how he ousted a prime minister. But, like, instead people want to focus on his, like, black shirt thing or whatever, or the brown shirts. No, brown shirts was Mussolini. The black shirts or whatever. And it's like, yeah, and then when Hitler took power, you know what he did with all of those thugs and the leaders of his violent revolution? He, like, ousted them, and he jailed them, and he killed some of them, and he deported one of them. And it's like, even Hitler hated these people. And I don't even care what Hitler thinks, frankly. But I do think it's very interesting that you would believe that.
You said I don't support intellectualism. Where did you get that impression?
You reject the university system. And you would think everything
Yeah,
ever.
I reject that.
Yeah.
I reject the American. I don't reject learning.
Are you an intellectual?
One of my favorite things to do is learning.
Well, let's do that. What is an intellectual? Define an intellectual.
Person who enjoys studying and learning.
Okay, I think an intellectual is like a person in influence over, like, academia. Well, a better phrase would probably be you reject being academic. You reject academia. These people are the ones who...
Modern academia.
You reject it, yeah. And these are all the people with influence. Well, obviously, you wouldn't reject whatever you build in your country. But You reject modern academia. You reject the idea of like getting a degree. You reject the idea of taking power in an institution. You reject the idea of becoming rich. Obviously, so it's like,
No, I don't.
yeah, you would totally would. How do you get rich in America?
I have 3 jobs and I have my own business.
No, but you're not a
I'm not
rich
saving all my
person.
money.
How do you get rich in America? Rich enough to make change, like billions of dollars,
Well,
five
okay,
hundred million
yeah.
dollars. You would reject
We
that,
live in a capitalist society
right? Which you
where
reject.
probably being morally, not too good, can help out with becoming rich.
Yeah. So you reject these things, and it's like, okay, so your idea is to have no, like to do what? Like exactly. It's like, what are you left with after that? And I know what you believe, but it's just like
True.
you compare the ideas, and it's like it doesn't
Well, I'm
matter.
left with the truth. That's what I'm left with.
You're not though.
And I think the
You
truth
don't
will
believe in
win
the truth. You can't even define what you believe
because
in
I don't believe in
objectively.
Jesus.
You don't even have like at least a Muslim believes in Allah. You don't even have an objective authority. You
I
think
think that all
you
the
told me
Abrahamic
stealing was
traditions-
wrong, and then I said conquest requires stealing. You said I guess stealing isn't always wrong. So it's like what do you
Well, I think
believe
you're
in?
putting words in my mouth.
You believe in Satan. You can't even define your own evil outside of Christianity. Like what do you mean? You don't have any objective ideas.
Well, Christianity has a general basis of evil. That doesn't mean I can't define it outside of Christianity.
Okay, who's God?
Christianity has the same opinion.
What are the
Who's
rules?
God? God
What
is
are
the
the
creator.
rules? What is the objective truths of your religion? What is it called?
The objective truths of my religion is following the truth.
Which is
That's
what?
basically my religion. Which is, okay,
Who
here's an example.
who defines truth?
The universe defines truth.
This
laws
is
of physics.
this is circular.
Rock is dropped on your head. If a boulder's dropped on your head, you're dead. I believe that if you say, "Oh, well, I'm still alive," that is going against the truth, and therefore you worship evil. That's a general outline.
So
of
if
what I
someone
believe.
like I understand what you mean, but that example didn't make sense.
Okay.
But I get what you mean. I get what you mean. It's like,
Okay.
but again, that's like a circular idea. Well, the universe proves the truth. Okay, the universe created by who? The creator. How do you know the creator's true? Well, the universe proves it true because there's laws, and it's like, okay, created by who? Created by whom? Created by what? And none of these things are moral in any way. These things are all like systems you're appealing to.
Well, I don't think it was
All
a
of your
tool.
morality is determined by the Christian culture around you. So it's
I
like,
think it's just that the universe is here. That's what God is.
okay,
Yes,
what
I
is
don't
the
think it's an
truth?
entity.
Because earlier when I asked you,
The truth
when you
is
said
not
you
here
believed
right
in
now,
something,
debating
and you quoted the Old Testament, you quoted the Bible to me to define your beliefs on justice. It's
what,
like,
an eye for an eye. Or whatever.
yeah, it's like you don't have objective anything. You don't have anything.
I can't have an opinion that is also shared with Christian views.
You just called your objective truth opinions. Like, that's what I mean. I believe in what's true. I know what I believe is true. I have standards of truth.
Well, yeah, my opinion of the truth and of how the universe works.
If I proved wrong one of your core beliefs, would your like everything fall apart?
Well, my core beliefs are.
What are your
I'm
core
basically
beliefs?
just trying to find the truth. I'm trying to find reality.
Like, yeah, that's nothing. That doesn't leave you with anything. That's not a system. That's not there's nothing there.
Well, yeah, I don't have gods to worship in my system.
Yeah, so
I'm
you're a Satanist.
just worshiping the fact that I'm a Satanist.
That's
I don't
what
worship evil, though.
No, Satanists are atheists, by the way. The Satanist religion are atheists, and they believe in the pursuit of truth, and they
believe
gets them
in
there.
the pursuit of evil.
No, they believe in the pursuit of themselves finding the truth. Actually,
Well, they believe in the pursuit of self-pleasure.
no. They believe in finding their truth independently, and it leads them to different places. That's why they are different. You basically believe what an atheist would believe. You're like John Locke. You're like Thomas Jefferson. You're what do you believe in nothing. Just because you don't, your entire like what? You don't actually believe anything. You believe in something in opposition to Christianity. You believe in something. Your non-political solution exists in rejection of the political solution. Your own belief system exists in rejection of not enough non-mass movements that aren't masculine enough for you. You know what I mean?
I don't think they're
your
reality.
entire worldview is defined by things that existed, that predated, that already exist. And
Well,
it's like that's not a
another
worldview.
one of my
That's just a that's just a reaction. And I don't think
I think another one of my criticisms is that none of those institutions or corrupt institutions are real per se, but my ideals or of a genuine positive society are actually real.
the
So
legal
you're
system
actually
isn't real.
helping yourself. It's based on lies. Paperwork is fake. That's not actually anything. That's
So
just
what? Your
paper.
society is
That's
not going to have a
just
legal
lies.
system. It's not going to have institutions of law. It's not going to have a
No, that's not what
government.
I'm saying. I'm saying that basing your entire solution on something that isn't real. It's
If
not
your
based on
state
reality,
decides the
is
land
not
you
a good
buy
idea.
is being used for something inappropriate, they can decline the sale. Would that be not real? Would that be fake?
They're denying something real with something fake.
Yeah. If
With
it's
just
fake, why?
reality,
If
but
it's not real, how can it stop you?
how can it? What do you mean?
If it's not real, how could it prevent you from doing something?
Because it's based in lies.
It's
It's
not
based on
real.
something that. Yeah, it's based
These
on
things are
something that
real.
isn't.
They have power. They're clearly real. They clearly have power. Things that are not real can't do something.
Yeah, but it's not based on reality. It's not based on what we actually
You
are able to
believe
perceive
that you exist,
reality.
that your existence is in the pursuit of truth, which would be finding the true reality. You don't even believe you know what reality is yet. You're still finding
Well,
it.
I'm just getting started.
Yeah, you don't even know what you don't even know what the reality is yet. So it's like, what do
I
you mean?
know that if a rock or a boulder is dropped on my head and then I die, I know that I'm dead.
You know as much as like an ant or a dog?
No, that's
Deer
just a
understand
simple
that.
explanation for
Yeah, you
That's a
have to
simple
give a simple one
explanation of
because you
my
can't give a more complex one. That's what I'm saying.
world. You'll
You don't have
understand.
one. I think I've pretty well understood everything you've said. I would like something more specific because, you know, you haven't really rebutted me at all, and all I've done is rebut you. So maybe you want to do that, but I don't think this stands up in comparison. I think you're basically doing what Arvel's doing, except saying that you're smarter than him.
I'm not familiar with Arbo. Who's that?
He's building a compound in like some nowhere place to do exactly what
Is he
you're
on
doing.
Twitter?
Yeah,
Arbo. What's his? How do I spell that?
I don't know. I fucking hate that. I think he blocked me because I like was shitting on him.
Casper Arbo.
I don't know. He's
Alright.
not. You'll know him by his videos and his tweets.
All right, whatever. I'll just find him later or something.
Yeah.
Um,
AARVOLL. I think he psyoped.
ARBOLL.
Yeah. Damn.
What was it? It was ARVOOL.
AARVOLL.
Okay.
Chat.
AAR.
Chat. I thought this guy would have more heat, dude.
Franz
Over the phone, he
Arbo?
sounded really excited. He was like ready, and he said some quirky things. It was like, oh, he's a little quirky, but I think we could argue. It's like this is worse than the Logos guy.
Yeah, just send me his page later, and I'll take a look at that. That's kind of interesting.
But my point is that Arvel isn't going to do anything. He'll have no effect. And
Well, what
that's
are
my
his
point.
positions on learning
Yours.
and pursuit of truth?
Yours.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sounds just
well,
like
let's,
him.
yeah, send me the, yeah, I probably have a lot in common with him, but,
And he doesn't.
yeah,
do
I think that
anything.
was a pretty productive debate. That was my first debate in my life.
Was it?
So, that was pretty fun.
Yeah. You got to bounce.
Get a bounce?
Yeah.
Not quite yet. I mean, we could chill and, do you have any video games? Like, what games do you have on Steam? You trying to do a gaming stream?
No. Not today.
No.
I gotta end.
Not
I'm done in 10 minutes. I've done 3 hours and 10 minutes from now. I'm done.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All
But
right. Well, yeah, I'll wrap everything up. But that was very fun. Yeah,
yeah,
and I do have a very strong desire to learn. I've been
shut up, good
increasing
cheddar.
my reading and stuff like that. I've been increasing my internet research as well, like on in terms of trying to learn history off of YouTube or whatever, geography, studying geography and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, I get you. I mean,
um,
obviously, I disagree with you, but I think if you looked into it, you'll figure it out. I think you'll get back to where I am. But I think the more you learn, the more you'll be where I'm at. But yeah, I mean, this
because
was fun.
your opinion basically is like the first. That's like yeah, because my thing is basically the backup if you guys fail. Really.
That's how you would perceive it. Yeah, that's basically how I would describe. I don't even believe it like that, but that's how I would describe like someone in your position's perception of
Well,
what
how do
they
you
do.
perceive it?
It's just like a waste of time. It's totally useless. And
A waste of
I think
time.
it is useful in a sense that it like weeds out like dumb people. And I'm not really prescribing that to you as much as other people. But
Well, I know some dumb Wignats.
I think
I
most of them
acknowledge
are
that.
dumb. I think most of them are like useful idiots who would just they're like the proud they're just like dumber Proud Boys people because at least the Proud Boys did stuff that was good. So
Right.
it's like I think it weeds them out, and if it makes them move out of the trailer park and into the woods, it's like so what? But besides that, I really don't see any utility in it, and I can just point to the lack of achievements from that route, right? But yeah, I mean, I think if I was gonna give like some criticism like of your tactics, you got to be a little more aggressive. You got to know, you got to come a little more prepared. And I know you're like, and that's hard because you're not. You're
I
like,
didn't study at all.
you're like
I didn't
you
have
have
any
to
time.
articulate. We're arguing worldviews here, and I can like, I know what I believe, and I not only know what I believe, I know like what everyone else believes about what I believe, So
I'd say you probably got a couple thousand hours of more of studying your worldviews than I do.
yeah, I've been doing this since I was like before puberty. It's embarrassing, honestly. But yeah,
Yeah, I've been doing this for I don't know, like 6 months. I mean, I was always political when I was younger, but
yeah,
I've really only started taking it seriously in the last several months. Really, since 2020, like the end of 2024, that's when I really started um, thinking that it's important to my know my shit.
yeah, I get that.
But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to ask you for your age, obviously, but I'd assume that you're around the same age as me.
Yeah, I'm a
And
younger guy. Yeah,
younger guy.
yeah.
Very cool. So yeah, that was really
It
fun
was good
though.
talking to
We'll
you,
have to
man.
do we'll do a debate.
Let me know
We'll
when
do
you
a
want to do
debate
something
series
else.
sometime.
When you get, and then yeah, when you get the camera and everything working, that'll probably be better. Just for
I think that'll create a better stream.
yeah.
Everyone will be able to see like the full picture.
All right.
Put a face to the message and everything. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
All
All right.
right.
I'll talk to you later.
I'll let you wrap everything with your chat.
All right.
Take care.
Have a good one.
Later.